Welcome to Meet the Author, where you can join in on insightful conversations with best-selling and award-winning indie published authors. Your hosts today are Rob and Joan, who themselves are indie published authors, book publicists, and paranormal investigators with Tampa Bay Spirits, based in Tampa Bay, Florida. Thanks for dropping by. And now, on with the show.
Hi, I'm Rob.
And I'm Joan. We're glad that you're here, whether you're watching us live. I just want to remind you this is a pre-recorded visit with author Wendy Scott. Or if you're listening to us on a podcast, we're really happy to have you here. And always try and tune in on Wednesday nights at 7. We love to hear your comments. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love to introduce you to all of our other audience, and try and tune in on Wednesday nights at 7 and comment as much as you want. Like, share, and follow.
So in your spare time, and if you're still looking for that Christmas gift to give to the reader in your life or yourself, here's one of our most popular products.
Hashtag support indie authors.
Need to get that for everybody.
Get that for the indie
Everybody
author
you
in
know.
your life.
Anyway, that's indiebooksource.com. That's where you need to go to see that in our store. Okay, so without much ado, I think we should bring in our three authors. We have Wendy Scott, we have W.J. Scott, and Wendy Jane, all at the same show. Isn't that amazing? So here she is.
Hi,
hello, Wendy.
Hi.
So Wendy comes to us from New Zealand. I believe this is the first time we've had a Kiwi on our show.
I'm honored to be the first Kiwi.
Yeah, we're really glad that you're here. There was a question I meant to ask you during the pre-show and I forgot. When you started building your home there where you are now, you had a 6-month-old baby, right? Mm-hmm. How old is that baby now?
17.
17
Whoa.
years old. Wow. That's great. Is she your only child?
Yes, he
he
is. And he towers over me by about a foot and a bit.
That's great. Was it difficult writing when you had such a young child?
Oh, no. We camped in that house truck for 3.5 years. And we had a solar panel that at night time I could plug my laptop and power it by a battery that I saved the power on. So I'd have candlelight and I'd be tapping away and baby's asleep. And it was just a beautiful and great environment for writing. And I wrote one of my novels in probably about 7 months, completed the whole thing start to finish in that house track, just because I could just
wow.
No distractions, well, except for my partner, but and we also had a little dog. We had a Stappy at the time, and she used to lie on my feet. So no, it was a great writing time. It really was.
That's awesome. Which leads to our next question. When did you start writing and why? And I know that you have a degree in chemistry, so did you have another career also, and you wrote along that, or what?
Well, I sort of when I was younger, I used to do, I'd write poems, and I even found some books I made, when I was a child. But I sort of went away from that as I grew older, and I went into laboratory work and chemistry and quality assurance, and so I was writing sort of more dry sort of SOPs and things like that. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't till a bit later in life we moved to Australia actually, and lived there for 5 years, and I was working in the wine industry at the time, which was great perks, I must say. And so I was sort of looking for something to do in the weekends, and I saw this ad, and it was for 6 weeks on all Saturdays, how to write a novel. And I'd always been a big reader, and I thought that's something I'm interested in, as in I think of learning the mechanics of a novel. I wasn't planning on writing one. I just thought I'm going to go along and just meet other people and learn about the novel. Well, 20 minutes in, the tutor, she was inspiring. She was incredible. She told it exactly how it was. And I was just like, oh, I'm going to give this a go. I think I might try and write a fantasy novel. And I was just all in. I found my thing. And then it just consumed me, and then I was just and that's what I did. And I actually spent 3 years writing that first novel, and I've never published it. It's my learning curve, and one day I think I will go back and tweak it, because I've learnt so much from when I started to where I am now, and I think the story premise is probably a good story premise, but I could probably cull about 40,000 words out of it.
No, that's great. Yeah. That's great, though. That's a really, really good thing. That brings me to my next question is, what kind of a writer are you? I mean, we've had a lot of authors on the show, and some of them follow a very rigid arc, the hero's journey, which you probably learned about when you were taking that, the hero's journey arc. Then there's the some people call themselves plantsers, which is the person who does some preparation and then flies by the seat of their pants. And then pantsers, who literally just fly by the seat of their pants. And, there's just all kinds of variations in there. Where do you fall in that? Do you have an outline? Do you wing it?
I do quite a mixture, depending on what I'm writing. When I write novels, especially when I'm writing a novel that's a part of a series, I am a huge planner. I get down to the stage where I've actually got cards that I have planned each scene out. I've got the whole story arc done. But having said that, I'm then very flexible. I've got the roadmap, and then as I go along, I adjust it. If suddenly I decide that I'm going to change, and I do, but I find it helps me keep on track if I've actually done the pre-planning. When I write short stories, sometimes I'll have nothing more than a start, middle, and end point that I've just jotted down, and then I just free write. So it really depends on the length of what I'm writing or what inspires me. I like to see the scenes like a movie in my head, and so by the time I get to write them down, I'm just basically just seeing it and it flows, So that pre-planning, or a lot of daydreaming, if you like, I might be walking down the beach and I'm having, people probably think I'm mad. I even sort of plan out the dialogue or the conversations. I get it so it's so real. I can then just write it. And I also have a thing where when I'm doing my first drafts, I have like a no censorship. I just move forward. And so I always think it doesn't matter if I've got gaps. It doesn't matter if I don't even have character names or it doesn't make sense. I just get it all down, and then I worry about it the next draft. I can do a lot of drafts.
Yeah, well,
there you go.
We all do. We call them rewrites, but there are a lot of drafts, and it changes. And don't you find that your characters are like, there are certain things your characters will and won't do, and so you kind of have to go with what they're going to do,
Oh, absolutely. They do become like real people. And even though you think you want this certain thing to happen, you actually realize that your character wouldn't do that, and so you need to follow the character's personality,
who they are. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So which is the first book that you actually published?
That would be Feroceum.
Oh, okay.
That's we first have that here. Let me grab it. Here you go, folks. The first published one.
Yeah.
You want to give a little synopsis about that?
Oh, absolutely. I've always been fascinated with ancient Egypt, and so I always wanted to write. I read books, I collect things, everything I can. So I wanted to base a fantasy world in Egypt, but it's a bit of a mismatch as well. The title Feroceum is like the Colosseum, but because the Fera means iron, and so it's gladiators, but the female, so it's feminators. The story follows Carly, who, when she reaches a certain age, basically when they reach puberty, girls who start to show magic are taken away by the priesthood and they're put into the Pharisee to fight for entertainment. They want to cull out the bloodlines where magic comes. So what her worry is, obviously, is she's trying to survive, but also she has a younger sister who she knows is already showing signs of magic. So she is worried that she needs to get out of there and she needs to go and protect her sister. And so it's Carly's sort of journey is like pretty much is how can an untrained lone girl, fight against a whole powerful priesthood.
That's fascinating. That sounds really good.
What age group is that written for?
It is. I say mature readers, because it is quite violent and there are mature themes in there.
Okay.
And that's why I use the my pen name Wendy Scott. But anything that's got the Wendy Scott, it's for mature readers. Whereas anything with W.J. Scott is family friendly or for younger readers.
Okay. And Wendy Jane is your romance.
Wendy Jane is can be anything. I like to experiment with paranormal, vampires. It can be anything on the Wendy Jane. It's just usually shorter works where I just have fun.
Okay.
So Pharisee is Wendy Scott. So buyer, be aware, not beware, but be aware that this is for a mature audience. Yes. And then I wanted to bring up this writing prompts series. And if you notice, viewers, right here in the middle, we have a Christmas writing prompts, and Christmas is only a few weeks away when this is aired. So do you want to explain a little bit about this series, what it's about? It sounds like a great series, actually.
The great fun. I also do quite a bit of creative writing tutoring for both adults and children. And I sort of thought a long time, I've always wanted to do it. And I thought I'd like to make a writing prompt book for kids. So I sort of have themed them. And so what it starts with is a picture. And then there's a bit of writing with the writing prompt, and then there's space so it's to get kids to get to use their own imagination and write their own little stories.
That's awesome. I like that a lot. And while we're talking about Christmas, let's bring up this one called Slade. It's very pretty.
Slade is a lovely little Christmas story. Tinsel is an elf, and he is allowed into Santa's workshop, just before Christmas. So he's new, and he gets sent out to help with the reindeer. But unfortunately, he forgets to wash the magic dust off his hands before he goes out. So he ends up having quite a misadventure.
And you'll have to read the book to find out what that misadventure is.
Okay, going back to the writing prompts. That's mainly to encourage young authors.
But I also have a lot of adults and writing groups that use them too.
Okay, so aspiring authors. Okay,
pretty much aspiring. So I did aim it for younger readers, but I do have a lot of adult readers that say, "Oh, we love using this too."
Oh, that's
all right.
Awesome.
So
that's
if
great.
You're listening to this or watching this, go ahead and go to Wendy's
check them out,
Amazon page and check these out and buy some.
Yeah.
Slade is actually was a prompt from one of the books.
Oh,
okay.
So I thought I would write a story based on one of the prompts. So that's what I came up with.
Yeah. Oh, interesting.
Awesome.
Very good.
That's very good. And that's good practice too, to have prompts like that and then see where does your imagination take you. Yep. It's really, really good. Well, let me see. When you've got to visit Wendy's pages, actually, let me show you some of those, how to get there. To visit Wendy on Facebook, go to author Wendy Scott, AuthorWendy Scott. But if you want to know about all of her books, I think best to either go to Indie Book Source and look her up on our pages there, or little plug for us here, or go to her website. Now, right now, as we're recording this, she's up as wendyjscott.com, which is WENDYJSCOTT.com. But she is building a new website now, which is much more reader friendly and author friendly. And it's called authorwendyscott.mysites.io. So try her. First, I would suggest you try authorwendyscott.mysites.io. And if that's not quite up and running, then you can try wendyjscott.com. You can find all of her books and other interesting things there. And if you want to follow her on Twitter, follow her at Wendy Jane Scott. That's WENDYJAYNESCOTT. By the time I finish all of these podcasts, I'm going to be tired of spelling.
You're never going to spell anything else, ever.
Now, Wendy's email is wendyscottbooks@gmail.com. Easy peasy.
Which will be important in a few minutes after we get back from commercial when we do the book giveaway. So anybody that's watching this as it is aired pre-recorded live on should be
December
8th. You can enter the book giveaway. Don't be shy. Enter the book giveaway, and
we'll explain more.
We'll
about
explain right after the commercial break here in a few minutes.
Right. Okay, I'm glad we got all of those in. We can go back to your books now. I'll be back there any second. Let me see. Tell us about this book, Tales by W.J. Scott.
Lots of awards.
Children's book. Has lots of awards. Yes.
Yeah. I've sort of probably won over, or probably 10, 12 international book awards across some of the books. So yeah, and Tales has been very well received. It's the first in a series. I am planning to have the second book called Hearts, and then there's going to be a third book which is sort of a spin-off called Pause. So it is. It has won awards in the like the pre-teen age group, the 9 to 12, but it is an all ages book. I've got people in their 80s that love it as well. It is a good, heartwarming story. There's a lot of themes and layers that run through the story. Kaiwa, my silvertail, they have magic that is kept in their tails, but his tail gets lopped off by a hunter, and so he is stuck being a youngling. He can't grow up, and he's also a bit of an outcast because he can't really sort of be part of the tribe because he doesn't sort of sense things the same way as anyone else. So he's in a bit of a tough spot. And then the hunters return, and they're actually looking at his tail has ended up going to a wizard, who then realizes that they can harvest the magic out of the tails, and their power is waning, and so they want this powerful magic. So they send the hunters out to go and harvest the silvertails. So they're sort of trapped in the mountains they live in, and there's no way of escaping. So because he doesn't have a tail, he volunteers to go on a quest to go and find the wise one, who can give them the deep magic to try and help them escape. So he goes on lots of adventures, and he meets lots of friends along the way in unlikely places who help him on his journey. So it's a journey about overcoming disabilities, about forming friendships, and it is and it's quite it's reasonably fast paced too. He sort of gets put through a lot, and he ends up in dilemmas where he has to make some very, very hard choices and not really knowing if he's making the right choices. So
just like all of us, right?
Yeah, exactly.
We don't know until afterwards, but it's also tells you that even if you're an outcast, there's a place for you, and there's a job for you, and that you're important. It doesn't matter, so that's really good. And plus, the whole tribe would have been gone if it wasn't for him. So they would have harvested all the tails. I like that. That's really good, Wendy. I think it's teaching. Yeah. And what I like is what you said about it's for all ages. And I believe that that's true. Young adult books and, children's books, you can enjoy them no matter what age you are. And the only reason that you're saying that be aware that they're mature books is that as a parent, you may not want your child reading some of the things that are in books meant for mature readers,
That's why I wrote Tales. I actually wrote it for my son when he was about 8. Because I was writing sort of the fantasy books, I wanted a book that I could read to him. And he actually spawned the idea. We were sitting at breakfast one morning, and we used to have these sort of fun conversations. And he turned to me and he asked, and he goes, "Mum," he goes, "if you had a tail, what would it look like?" And so and my mind just went crazy. And we had a lot of laughs imagining all these different tales on us. So that was the germ of the idea. And so I wrote it. And when I originally got like the rough proofs, originally it was going through a different was sort of a hybrid publisher, was looking at picking this book up. And so I had this proof. They ended up folding, unfortunately, before it went through. But so he had like the only copy of this book. And we used to, and every night we used to sit in his bed and I'd read in this book. So it was his book. It was really great. And so even if, I obviously ended up publishing it in the end, yes. But even if I hadn't, nothing takes away those precious memories of getting to the end of the chapter. And I'm a bit of a one for leaving a hook at the end of chapters. And he'd be, "You can't stop now, you can't." I would read another chapter, but I knew the next chapter was just as bad, that it was going to end in something bad. So you have to go to sleep. We have to. But that was for me. That doesn't get any better than that. To read to your son and have him, So yeah, so that like I said, that book is dedicated to my son.
But that's just cool. The question that he asked you, Wendy, shows that he has quite a bit of imagination himself.
Right.
He does.
He may be a budding author. Who knows?
No, unfortunately, he has gone. He's not the budding author. He is very sports orientated. Yeah. Very very dedicated sportsman.
Well, that's understandable.
Got time for one more. This is a short story. So.
Visitors, yeah.
Visitors is once again, it's a bit of a theme one. There's 2 young boys. Their mother is sick, and so she sends them off to her sister, who isn't really that used to handling children or anything, and so they end up going to this rather strange town where people don't seem to have really aged, and they seem to be like stuck back in the 1950s, and there's no technology, doesn't seem to work there. And so they go and stay with her, and then they actually discover the secret of what's happening on Tucker's Mountain. And I won't say any more.
Okay. That sounds really good, though. Very interesting. Beautiful dog on the cover. Also, is that
one of your dogs or just a dog?
No, that's an Australian Shepherd, and that dog is sort of a big feature in the story.
I love Australian Shepherds. Our neighbor has one, and his friend has another. So we often see some very large Australian Shepherds around here, but they're so beautiful. My goodness,
aren't they? Though?
Yeah, they really are. They're the sweetest dogs too.
I have 2 dogs at the moment. They're both 11. One Boss, he's the size of a small pony. He's a full Mastiff cross something else, and he has the heart of a teddy bear. He's just the most gentle, beautiful dog. And we also inherited a little Bichon Frise, and he is the size of a teddy bear with the heart of a lion. So we have some very interesting dynamics with our dogs, I must say.
One of our daughters has a Great Dane, and it's a European-American breed mix, so she's very large. And an 18-year-old Boston Terrier, who's very small, but is the boss of the whole house, including the Great Dane, who's afraid of her. Because she's the grande dame.
I mean, I'm a huge dog animal and including dog lover, and so quite often the lovely attributes of dogs do feature in a lot of my books. In Tales, there's actually a dog called Buster Boy, who I think most readers end up absolutely loving Buster Boy, and it reminds them usually of a dog they've had.
Yeah, we love dogs too. We've always had dogs. We've always had a large dog and a small dog until we moved into this community, which doesn't allow large dogs. So we have a small dog.
Small dog.
A little 9-pound dog who's very much like your dog.
Small but mighty.
Small but mighty.
Fearless.
One of our neighbors just bought a little dog 2 months ago, so puppy. So it's only 4 months old, but I don't think he's going to get much bigger. He's only 4 pounds, which is less than 2 kilos, right? And they named him Goliath. It's really small, but he has the heart of a Goliath. So
that's for sure. Well, it's time to break for our commercial. Got a couple of commercials to do. Everyone sit tight. When we come back, we will do our book giveaway. Yep. So you don't want to miss that.
Nope.
And so hang on and enjoy.
Yes. Hey, look at us. We've got a new store.
Yeah, we do. It's pretty exciting.
What can you find there?
We have a number of designs available on t-shirts, hoodies, coffee mugs, laptop and phone cases, pillows, and new designs are coming in all the time.
Sounds like a great place to shop for authors and readers.
Yeah, and it's easy to find. It's simple. Just visit indieBookSource.com, click on the store tab, and you're there.
Many secrets are hidden within the darkness of the jungle. Behold, this one about a man, a woman, a black jaguar, and an ancient Maya legend. Two Faces of the Jaguar is a novel by George Dismukes that will take you deep into the jungle and capture your imagination until the last word. Two Faces of the Jaguar is book one of a trilogy. Two Faces of the Jaguar, where only the adventurous dare to read.
Two Faces of the Jaguar, The Lost City, and The Jaguar's Quest are available on Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, and many other bookseller websites. Two Faces of the Jaguar, the book people are talking about. Get your copy today.
At Indie Book Source, you can shop by genre or by author, and you will be buying direct from the author's main purchase link. We offer hundreds of titles in formats that include ebooks, paperback, hardbound, and audiobook. Support an indie author. Visit indiebooksource.com today. WLFE Digital Broadcast Network presents Variety Unlimited Television. Watch shows like Meet the Author Podcast, The Bipolar DM, Just Cindy, Card Pulls and Coffee, Unfiltered Talk with Bryce, and more. That's right, our shows are your shows on WLFE Digital Broadcast Network. And now, back to the show. Hi.
Hello.
Hello.
Okay, we promised a book giveaway. Here it is. The first 3 people to email wendyscottbooks@gmail.com will win an ebook copy of their choice. So I want to encourage you also, if you didn't catch this show while it aired live on the 8th, go ahead and write to Wendy. Go ahead and email her, and tell her you're interested, I'm sure she'd love to hear from you.
Oh, absolutely.
I also want to say, if you read a book, please leave a review.
Absolutely.
If you love a book, please tell people what you really liked about that book, because then people who are like-minded and like those same things will know, okay, this is a book that I would like to read. So please do that. We all need reviews.
Okay.
There we go. All right.
Now, back to talking about your books.
Yes, because there's a lot to go
Several
through
more here.
Let's see. All right. I love the cover on this one. Let's do this. Plus, I like the title and the idea, the theme. Text, a perfect catastrophe. I can read. It's a paranormal romance short story, people.
It's just a little bit of fun. Once again, this story was written from, I belonged to a romance writers group, and went along, and we had a story prompt, and so I wrote a few pages of the prompt and read it out, and then it sort of kept niggling at me, thinking, oh, I could do more with this. I could do more, and I hadn't at that stage really written. I have romantic elements in some of my books, but I'd never written anything that was actually romance or strictly paranormal. And so I thought, oh, I'll mix the two up and I'll write this short story and just really have fun with it. And so, and pretty much the premise of the story is she's hexed by someone she doesn't know. And so she has sort of issues when she's interested in someone else, something happens to her. So she's pretty much been stuck being celibate for about a year, and it's getting a bit old. so it goes on her adventures as how she tries to get rid of the hex.
Aha. That wouldn't be a good hex.
No, definitely not.
And if a real witch ever hexed anybody like that, they'd get it back tenfold. So probably not a good idea.
No, not a good idea.
All right, here's the next one. Feeders. Madison Reed, PI. So
this is based in a futuristic LA, and it's a bit of a mixture of there's robots, and there's also vampires were actually discovered, and they've become a part of a vampire accord, and they're sort of kept as pets. And it's quite trendy for celebrities to own a vampire. And if they're not owned, the vampires have to sort of live in these dedicated sort of hotels where they're sort of kept away. So there's a lot of different controversies going on. But Madison Reed actually she's trying to track down a serial killer. And she believes that the media darling, who is this vampire everyone loves, and she's actually pretty sure that he is the killer. And so she wants to get some justice.
She wants to expose who the true killer is. Let's go on to Lodestone, Witch Hunt, book 1.
Yeah, Lodestone is been very, very popular with readers. It sort of follows two different journeys. We've got Sabrina, who it's sort of her story, but she's also got the diary of a relative who was sort of like called a destroyer. And so you sort of go between the lives of the two of them, and you actually find out why the background story of why Sabrina's in the situation she's now in. So the Lodestone stops magic. So we've got magic has been obliterated, and we've got this totalitarian regime who are trying to wipe out magic and witches. Sabrina is a healer, and so she sort of comes under the radar. So she ends up being the only person that could lift as the relative, long lost relative of Lauren, that she's the only one that can raise the Lodestone and restore magic. So it's a bit of an impossible mission for this, once again, this lone girl to go up against an army and a regime to try and bring magic back.
That sounds really interesting. That brings me to a question. We had the Salem witch hunts and trials here in the United States, actually right near where I grew up, not too far from where I grew up. And I was wondering, do you have a history of that at all in New Zealand? Because I noticed that a couple of your books have been, people trying to stop magic.
Not so much in New Zealand. No, we're a fairly new country, so we don't sort of have the depth of history that you have in other places around the world. It's just something that's always interested me. I love collecting reference books. I love the hard copy books. I've got a couple of bookcases just crammed full of books, and I do a lot of reading and research, and that's I have to be careful though, because I can end up getting so immersed in the research I'm not actually writing anything.
Yeah.
So anything and each different series I write is usually based on something that I'm interested in, whether it's in this case it was witchcraft and healing, and obviously I'm fascinated with ancient Egypt. I have another series that is actually based on an Asian culture, anything to do with ancient cultures. I usually find, so I've probably got a few more different series yet to come. Yeah. But the witchcraft one was definitely, I'm interested in how women and especially in the past, and the injustices, and obviously we don't want the future to repeat the mistakes that have been in the past.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Well,
so that brings me to one other question.
Yeah.
Do you actually have hobbits there?
Well, when you're allowed to travel, you'll have to come up to Hobbitville and have a look for yourself.
Well, we've all seen New Zealand.
Oh, it's so beautiful.
Oh my gosh. I'm telling you, it is a beautiful country. Amazing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, no doubt about it. So anyway, as you said, you really like Egypt. So do I, Wendy. I am fascinated with it. One of my friends went to Egypt with her aunt, and she knew how crazy I was about Egypt and everything to do with Egypt. So when she went to King Tut's tomb, she broke off a piece of the wall and brought it back to me. I have it
I'm surprised
framed.
we weren't cursed.
I know. I have it framed with a papyrus behind it. And yeah, she also brought me part of the Great Wall of China, which and I also got a fairy rock from a fairy ring in Ireland, which we had to send back because I'm Irish and I didn't want any of that juju.
That's true.
King Tut, I thought I could deal with. I didn't want to make the fairies mad at me.
No, that's pretty special.
So tell us about hieroglyph.
Hieroglyph actually starts here in Hokitika in New Zealand. So I like to sometimes sort of put a bit of my hometown into my stories.
Sure.
So my character TC, she's 13, and she wears gloves all the time, and she's sort of treated as a bit of an oddity. But the reason she wears the gloves is because when she touches things, old things, she actually has visions about them. But she hasn't told anyone she has this sort of superpower, if you like. So she's sort of got under the radar. So she gets the opportunity to go over to Australia, where her uncle, who's an archaeologist, at Gosford, there are actually hieroglyphs in the rocks there. And so he wants to prove that ancient Egyptians visited Australia. And so she goes over there to try and help him on the week's holiday she has. She gets visions, and then she understands that it's true. So she wants to help him. But we've got a lot of media and other people who want it to be debunked and that it's a hoax. And so you actually have a parallel story, because through her visions, you actually see what happened to this Egyptian prince and what, their journey, and there's a bit of tragedy that happened to them. And I've actually based the story on what the hieroglyphs in those rocks actually that are there, what they mean. And there's been a lot of controversy about them. And so all those controversies and things I have included in the book, and that because I mean I like to believe that they did, and so that's what I put the story on.
Yeah,
this would be this is actually a first book in a series though, because I actually plan to have 5 books in this series.
awesome.
Next we're going off. TC's adventure is going to be in Fiordland in New Zealand.
Awesome.
Yeah, and then we're probably going to end up going to back to we're going to actually go to Egypt, and then we're going to probably go to England, and then we're going to go to the Middle East. So she has quite a story arc, because she's actually, her parents were archaeologists, actually disappeared during a dig, and so and though she's an orphan, she's never really sure what exactly happened to them. So we have that going on in the background as well.
And we're hoping sometime she figures that out through one of the books, right? We have that to look forward to.
You had that to look forward to. Hieroglyph actually won the gold medal in the UK Wishing Shelf Book Awards, and it won a silver medal in the Reader's Favourite International Book Awards. And I actually got to go to Miami and pick up my medal, and that was an absolute highlight. My sister, who lived in Canada, she flew down and met me, and we went through the awards ceremony together, and
good.
really, really special. So Hieroglyph has been appealed to many ages.
I
have a lady who is in her 80s who wrote the most brilliant review called it was Cartouches, and her father was very much an Egyptologist, and she sort of said I hit all the bases, and that just made my absolute day. That it reminded her of her childhood, and she'd been to Egypt, she'd been to these places I'd mentioned, and the British Museum and all that sort of stuff, and she just sort of said it all rang true. And so that made my day. Absolutely made my day. That all my research had paid off, and I'd given people a genuine experience. And
that's a compliment.
Yeah,
really,
absolutely,
big compliment.
Yeah. And that's the kind of review you need.
It is. I mean, those readers' reviews are really much the lifeblood for an indie author.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And appreciate them in the light gold.
Have you ever read the Amelia Peabody series?
No, I haven't.
Elizabeth Peters? No? Oh, you're a reader. If you like Egypt, you've got to read this. I will. She's written, she's no longer with us, but she was one of my all-time favorite authors. I've read every single one of her books. She had me at Egyptology, and then she had me with Amelia Peabody, being back in, the late 1800s, early 1900s, being this female who was going to go out there and be an Egyptologist. It's a great storyline, and it follows through Amelia's whole life. She gets married and has a child who grows up and has a lot of adventures along the way. There's quite a few books. You need to read it.
I will.
And, I think you'll really, really enjoy it, the series. I'm the same as you. I just love everything about ancient cultures. Especially Egypt, I have to admit, and also indigenous people. I love all the indigenous people stories. And we've traveled around the United States and gone to all kinds of petroglyph carvings, which is really like hieroglyphs carved into stone and rocks all over the place. And it's just fascinating.
They're amazing, aren't they?
They are. I mean, you're not supposed to touch them. So if there are any rangers watching, I won't say which ones I've touched, but I've touched them. There was one handprint that Rob said to me, put your hand in there. It looks like it's the same size. And I did, and it was the exact same size and shape of my hand. It was really interesting. And someone did that thousands of years ago, and so it's like, wow, that's really awesome. I've never been to Egypt. but I would love to go. I've gone there vicariously through books. We brought up
one more. Just
Tequila Rose is the only one we haven't brought up. But there are more books than these, people. Yes. This is just a smattering, an idea of what you can get if you will go to her webpage and peruse all of her books, or find her on Amazon.com, or like I said, through Indie Book Source, and see what she has to say. Here we go. Tequila Rose, Virginity Blues. And what is Tequila Rose about?
This started off as a book title. I was doing a writing course, because I've done lots and lots of writing courses, and one of them we had homework. We had to go and get an ISBN number from the New Zealand National Library, and so I thought, and I'd sort of had the title had been in my head for a long time, and I thought, I'll just log that title and get this for the homework. And then every year they would message me and say, Wendy, we need you to log 2 books of Tequila Rose Virginity Blues, into the National Library. And I'd write back to them and say, I haven't written it yet, and this went on for several years. And I thought, I need to write it. So they'll stop sending me emails asking about this book.
That's motivation.
That's so
and so Tequila Rose is my character's name, and she's named after her mother. Named her that because that is what she'd been consuming on the night that tequila was conceived. So and her mother's a bit of a hippie, and that. So Tequila Rose, she's actually a struggling indie author, and she has a bit of a bad relationship with alcohol herself, and so that it starts off with poor Tequila as suffering from one of those mother of all hangovers when someone is banging on her door. This story is also based in Hokitika, so I've given it the local slant, and had a lot of fun putting in sort of Hokitika places in the story.
Yeah.
And so she opens the door, and there's a guy he's absolutely stunning. He's gorgeous, and she can't remember him at all, but he seems to be overly familiar with herself. So she has a mystery. The story is a bit of a mystery of her trying to remember or find out who this guy is, and she actually ends up meeting him again at a speed dating event, and sort of wins a date with him, but she's a bit wary as well, because she seems to there's a bit of an undertone where he's sort of seen where he possibly might be a drug dealer, and that doesn't sort of mesh with her. So so she's got a bit of a quandary to sort of figure out is he the man of her dreams or not.
Okay, so we've got to read the book to find out what happens to poor Tequila Rose. Is he the one, or is he a really bad apple?
I'll say no more. But he's hot.
That's great. That's fabulous.
So in just a few sentences, can you give any aspiring author some advice? Just short advice.
Number one, buy her book prompt series.
Well, yeah, that would be number one, of course.
Just saying. Okay, then after that.
That is, if you're a writer, you need to write, not talk about writing, and you need to be a big reader and read across genres. Don't just read whatever you think you're going to write, because you can get so much more out of having a really wide reading list. But write. Even if you don't feel like writing, just put yourself down. I do like scheduled times, and it's dedicated writing time. The internet's turned off, all distractions. There's no emails, no nothing, and you write. And you just keep getting your word count up. Keep moving forward in that. Because quite often I meet many writers, and they've been writing the same book for 12 years. Well, they think they're writing it, but they're actually talking about it. And there's not many words going down on the page, And sometimes if you spend too much time talking about it, you give all the energy to that rather than actually getting the words on the page.
Right.
That's a very good piece of advice.
And to be kind to yourself too, is don't be a perfectionist. Turn that critic voice off in your head that's telling you that everything you're writing is awful and no one will ever want to read it. It's just turn it off and you just write it anyway. Write it as, just your first drafts can be absolutely dreadful, but it doesn't matter because you just go back and you refine them, you polish them, and that it's just give you permission to write badly, and you just go for it.
Right. You have to start.
Right.
You have to start.
And don't stop.
The polishing will come.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yep.
Yes. Rewrite after rewrite after rewrite. It will.
Yep, that's the one.
Yep. All been there.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
It's the stage where you're abandoning. You have to decide it's time to abandon the story. You can't sort of tweak it anymore.
Yeah, you have to birth it and let it go.
There you go.
Send it out of the nest. It's done. That's right.
Well,
That's
Wendy,
exactly right.
Thank you so much for giving us your time today.
Been wonderful.
This has been a really interesting show.
Very.
Very good to hear about all your writing. We appreciate it.
Well, thank you for having me. It's just been delightful to be here.
You're very welcome.
It's been wonderful.
We're going to move you over to the side, and I'm not going to even try it. Maybe I could do it this way. There. Got you moved over there. Do you have anything you would like to say?
No.
No, you don't.
Not really.
Okay. Well, then.
I'm kind of talked up.
I do. Coming up here, next episode will be on the 15th of December, and that'll be Kim Nugent. She writes quite extensively self-help type books, and she's just really good. Susan Kite is on the 22nd, and Tori Gates will make a return appearance on the 29th of December. And so we'll round the year out with 3 live shows.
And Tori Gates always has a lot to say.
He's got a lot to say. It's hard to get him not to say it.
No, we don't want to get him to say it.
That's right.
We want him to say it.
Okay. All right. So I guess until next time.
That's all, folks.
Thank you for joining us here on Meet the Author. Make sure you stay up to date with our show by clicking like, follow, and share. And you can find us on Spotify, iTunes, and more. See you next time on WLFE-DB.com.
You've been listening to WLFE-DB.com, where our shows are your shows.